Welcome to Psychology of Humans. Today we explore one of the most iconic names in psychological science, a man whose work became the foundation of behaviorism, learning theory, behavioral therapy, advertising, habit studies, and modern behavioral psychology. His name is Ivan Pavlov, and his discovery of the conditioned reflex changed how we understand learning, behavior, and the human mind. Pavlov didn't set out to revolutionize psychology. In fact, he wasn't even a psychologist. He was a physiologist, a scientist, obsessed with the body, not the mind. Yet it was precisely this obsession that led him to an accidental discovery that reshaped the entire field of psychology. Today, we'll explore who Pavlov was, how he made his accidental discovery, the science behind conditioned reflexes, why his work became the foundation of behaviorism, how conditioning shapes your daily life, and why his influence is still everywhere, from therapy to marketing to the habits you can't break. Let's dive in. Ivan Petrovich Pavlov was born in 1849 in Russia, the son of a village priest. His childhood was shaped by discipline, curiosity, and hard work. But Pavlov was not destined to follow in his father's footsteps. As a young man, he encountered the works of Darwin and Sekhanov, both of whom argued that human behavior could be explained through physical and biological processes. This captivated Pavlov. Instead of studying theology, he shifted to science. He devoted his life to understanding the body, especially digestion. He wanted to uncover how the body regulated itself, how reflexes worked, and how the nervous system controlled involuntary processes. Pavlov worked tirelessly, often 16 hours a day, and eventually became one of the most respected physiologists in Russia. But his most important discovery wasn't about digestion, it was about learning. In his digestive research, Pavlov worked with dogs. He implanted small tubes to measure their salivation, and studied how the body responded to food. But Pavlov noticed something strange. Before the dogs even tasted the food, before the food reached their mouths, sometimes before the food even entered the room, they were already salivating. It wasn't the food causing the response, it was the expectation of food. The dogs were responding to the sound of footsteps, the sight of the lab assistant, the clinking of bowls, the time of day. Something unrelated to food had become associated with food and was triggering a biological response. This fascinated Pavlov. He realized he had stumbled onto a new kind of learning. The birth of classical conditioning. Pavlov designed a series of experiments to study this phenomenon systematically. The process worked like this. 1. The unconditioned stimulus, UCS food naturally makes a dog salivate. This is automatic. It requires no learning. 2. The neutral stimulus, NS, something unrelated to food, like a bell, produces no salivation. 3. Pairing the stimuli. Pavlov repeatedly rang the bell, and then gave the dog food. 4. The conditioned response, CR. Eventually, the dog began to salivate to the bell alone. The bell, once meaningless, had become meaningful. This became known as classical conditioning, also called Pavlovian conditioning. It showed that organisms can learn by association, pairing one stimulus with another, until they become linked in the brain. This simple principle became one of the most influential discoveries in psychological history. Why Pavlov's work was revolutionary? Pavlov did more than describe conditioning, he quantified it. He discovered how fast conditioning occurs, how conditioning is extinguished, how conditioned responses can return, how stimuli generalize to similar objects, how discrimination works telling stimuli apart, how associative strength can be measured. For the first time, learning could be studied in a controlled, scientific way. This was revolutionary for two reasons. 1. It made psychology measurable. At the time, psychology focused on introspection, subjective descriptions of feelings and thoughts. Pavlov introduced objective measurement into the study of behavior. 2. It linked mind and body. Pavlov showed that learning physically changes reflex pathways in the brain. Behavior was not mystical, it was biological. He bridged the gap between physiology and psychology. Pavlov and behaviorism. In America, Pavlov's ideas sparked a psychological revolution. John B. Watson read Pavlov's work and declared it the foundation for a new science, behaviorism. Behaviorists believed behavior is learned, associations shape responses. The environment trains us. Prediction and control of behavior are possible. Pavlov's discovery became the cornerstone of learning theory, behavior modification, behavioral therapy, operant conditioning later introduced by Skinner. Habit formation research. Pavlov didn't consider himself a psychologist, but his influence reshaped the entire field. Conditioning and human behavior. Classical conditioning is not just about dogs and bells, it shapes human behavior constantly. 1. Emotional learning. Phobias often develop through conditioning. If a person experiences something traumatic with a dog, the sight or sound of a dog may later trigger fear. 2. Consumer behavior. Advertisers use Pavlovian techniques constantly, pairing products with attractive people, pairing brands with music or emotions, associating products with lifestyle desires. You are conditioned every time you see a commercial designed to link an emotion to a product. 3. Addiction. Environmental cues. A lighter location, A smell can trigger cravings through conditioned associations. 4. Habits and routines. Morning coffee, scrolling your phone, comfort eating, these often begin as conditioned responses. 5. Social conditioning. We learn to associate approval with certain actions, punishment with others, creating lifelong behavioral patterns. Pavlov uncovered one of the simplest, yet most powerful, mechanisms through which humans learn: extinction, recovery, generalization, and discrimination. Pavlov discovered several principles that remain essential in therapy today. Extinction. If the conditioned stimulus is no longer paired with the unconditioned one, the conditioned response fades. This is the basis of exposure therapy. Spontaneous recovery. Even after extinction, the response can return suddenly and briefly. This is why relapse happens. Generalization. A conditioned response spreads to similar stimuli, like fearing all dogs after a single bad experience. Discrimination. We can learn to respond only to specific stimuli, as when someone learns that one specific situation triggers fear, but others do not. These principles are the backbone of modern behavioral treatment. Pavlov's legacy. Pavlov received the Nobel Prize in 1904, but his legacy goes far beyond awards. His work laid the foundation for behaviorism, CBT, exposure therapy, habit training, behavioral economics, advertising psychology, neuroscience of learning, modern habit research. Pavlov proved that learning is predictable, measurable, and biological. He showed that the brain rewires itself based on experience decades before neuroscience proved it scientifically. He revealed that behavior is not fixed, it's shaped by associations, and associations can be changed. This insight is at the heart of therapy, education, and personal change. Final thoughts. Ivan Pavlov was not a psychologist, but he changed psychology more than almost anyone else. By discovering classical conditioning, he revealed a simple truth: we are all shaped by our associations. Our habits, reactions, fears, and desires are often the result of learned connections. And if they were learned, they can be unlearned. His work empowers us with a message of possibility. Change is not magic. Change is not guessing. Change is learning something new. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.